We begin after previous events, where the zombie outbreak in the Turkish city-state of Harran ended with the death of all of the city's citizens, with no reported survivors. However, the Global Relief Effort, or GRE, is able to develop a vaccine for the Harran virus, ending the threat of the zombie pandemic. Unfortunately, despite promises to cease all research on the virus, the GRE continued experimenting in secret. In 2021, a mutated variant of the virus named Tachytransmissive Harran virus, or THV, escapes a GRE lab and starts a second pandemic that spreads even faster than the first, quickly sweeping across the entire world in an event dubbed the Fall. The vaccine and antizin, or anti-zombie injection, are ineffective against this new strain of the virus, but its effects can be suppressed with ultraviolet light. By 2036, 15 years after the Fall, much of the world's population has been wiped out, and human civilization has been reduced to a handful of scattered settlements, with the walled-off European city of Villador being one of the last known remaining cities on Earth. Originally quarantined by the GRE, Villador was spared the worst of the pandemic due to its quarantine walls also keeping the hordes of zombies out of the city. However, control of the city is now split between several factions, including the militaristic peacekeepers, the independent survivors, and the violent renegades. Aiden Caldwell is known as a pilgrim, an individual brave enough to travel between human settlements. He decides to make the journey to Villador in order to search for his lost sister, Mia. Aiden makes his way to Villador after being notified that there's an informant who knows the whereabouts of Dr. Waltz, a doctor who experimented on Aiden and Mia when they were children, and hopes that Waltz knows Mia's location. Aiden meets the informant, but is bitten by a volatile, one of the most powerful types of zombies, and becomes infected himself. The informant gives Aiden a working electronic GRE key, warning him that if Waltz gets his hands on it, Villador is doomed. He also instructs Aiden to take the key to the Fish Eye, a survivor settlement, and give it to a woman named Lawan. The informant is then captured and executed by Waltz while Aiden flees, making his way further into Villador. Due to lacking a biomarker, or wrist-worn device which tracks the progress of a person's infection, Aiden is nearly executed by fearful survivors, but is saved by Hakon, one of the locals. Hakon explains tensions in Villador are high due to a peacekeeper officer, Lucas, having been recently murdered, with the peacekeepers believing that the survivors of the Bazaar, another survivor settlement, are responsible, which may potentially lead to a war between the two factions. Hakon helps Aiden obtain a biomarker and assists him in his endeavors to gain access into Villador's central district, where the Fish Eye is located. Aiden is given the choice to side with either the Bazaar's leaders, Carl and Sophie, or Aitor, another peacekeeper officer, in order to gain access to the central district, as both sides go to war. Aiden decides to work with Aitor, and he discovers that Hakon killed Lucas on Waltz's orders. Waltz confronts Aiden, demonstrating his superhuman abilities as he steals the key from him. Aiden pursues Waltz to an abandoned car factory, where Waltz uses the key to activate a console before Lawan intervenes, incapacitating Waltz long enough for Aiden to recover the key and escape. Lawan reveals that she was also one of Waltz's test subjects and seeks revenge against him, and that Lucas was murdered after originally finding the key. With the key, Aiden and Lawan are able to enter the central district, where they witness the sudden restoration of electricity to the city due to Waltz's use of the key. Aiden then meets with the commander of the Peacekeepers, Jack Matt, and the former leader of the now defunct group called the Night Runners, now with the survivors, Frank Marway. They both ask Aiden to reactivate the radio antenna atop Villador's highest skyscraper, the VNC Tower, so that they can broadcast messages to all of Villador and the settlements beyond, in return offering to help Aiden with finding a surviving GRE doctor so that he can access the GRE database for information on Mia. After reactivating the tower, Aiden decides to give control of it to the Peacekeepers, while also secretly bugging it for Juan Rayner, leader of the suppliers group working with the Peacekeepers, who's suspicious of Matt and wants to be able to intercept Peacekeeper communications. Afterward, Aiden learns that the GRE doctor's identity is Veronica Ryan, a Bazaar resident, where he returns to and finds her, discovering she's on the run from the renegades. Together, they head to a GRE facility called the Observatory, where the GRE database is located. After accessing the database, Aiden is unable to find any useful information to help his search for Mia, but discovers that Waltz reactivating Villador's power plant also reactivated a GRE failsafe protocol, which has triggered missile strikes to destroy Villador. Waltz arrives to take the key, and while fighting him, Aiden loses control of his infection, gaining superhuman abilities similar to Waltz, and killing Veronica just before a missile destroys the observatory and Waltz escapes with the key. Lawan pulls Aiden from the debris, and he warns her that he can't control when he turns, meaning he'll inevitably lose control again, making it unsafe to be around him. Despite this, he's unable to persuade Lawan, who wants to accompany him, from going after the leader of the Renegades, Colonel Chris Williams, which she ends up doing alone. Upon reaching Williams and convincing Lawan not to kill him, Aiden is informed by Williams that he originally stopped the missile strikes, but Waltz has resumed them. Not wanting to see Villedor destroyed, Williams tells Aiden to go to X-13, the GRE's research institute outside the walls of Villedor, where experiments to find a cure for the virus occurred, in order to confront Waltz and stop the missiles. Aiden and Lawan enter the complex and are shocked to discover that X-13 was intended to be a survival shelter for GRE officials with massive stockpiles of supplies. Lawan rescues Hakon after he tries to protect them from the renegades, leaving Aiden to continue alone. As he journeys through X-13, he realizes that it's the same facility where he was experimented on as a child. Aiden finally confronts Waltz, who reveals that Aiden's memories were incorrect and that Mia is actually Waltz's daughter, who he's been trying to cure for the past 15 years. Waltz refuses to abort the missile launch, as that would require shutting down X-13, which must be kept running in order to cure Mia, forcing Aiden to battle him. Aiden finally manages to defeat Waltz, who succumbs to his wounds, but the key, which is required to abort the missile launch, is destroyed in the fighting. Lawan then tells Aiden she plans to detonate explosives to destroy the missiles before they can launch, which will also destroy X-13, and Aiden must make a decision. If Aiden allowed Lawan to do this, he would take Mia out of X-13, which would be destroyed by the explosion, but the city would be spared from destruction. Mia would die shortly after, due to her weakened condition, and would be buried by Aiden. Meanwhile, Villedor would fall under the control of the faction which Aiden supported the most on his journey, likely a joint partnership between Juan and Williams. However, Aiden decides to save Lawan, using his superhuman abilities to carry her out of X-13's missile silo. In doing so, Aiden fails to stop the missile strike, which destroys Villedor, killing a majority of the population. Aiden then leaves the city due to his uncontrollable infection, continuing his journey as a pilgrim, along with Hakon, who accompanies him.